Recording in progress.
So now,
Recording in progress.
Oh, 15 after, right? Yep. It's showing it very large.
Showing it, oh, it's very, very large. Good, I can see it.
See the magnifying glass to the lower left, how it's.
Yeah.
There.
Better? Just arrow left and right.
Oh,
Yeah?
yeah, okay, yeah, okay. Thank you. That's just a PowerPoint.
Okay. We're good for now, we got Dan somewhere, right? Yep. Right there. And Eric's online or not quite?
He's on there.
Good, okay. All right, welcome to the town council meeting for March 10th, 2026. Starting with the work session, agenda item number 1 is Summit County School District Master Planning Process Update. And maybe we'll do some introductions going around. And I'll just start on Andy Held, I'm Mayor Pro Tem. Thanks for being here.
I'm Elizabeth Skrupsack, and council member.
Diane McBride, Assistant Town Manager.
Tony Burrs, Superintendent.
I'm Kara Drake, the Chief Financial Officer for the school district.
And Robin Goldstein,
Dan Giddy, Council Member.
Martin Allen, council member. Nice to meet you.
Pat Renaud, town attorney. Tom Fisher, town manager.
And we have Mayor Rick Inkin online watching it. So yeah, you guys can jump right into it. Thanks for being here.
Yeah, sure. I think we're 30 minutes, so we have 15 or 20 minutes of slides, and then we want to open it up for questions and conversation. Tom's been engaged with us on our master planning committee. Quickly, I'm Tony Burrs, Superintendent, 4th year here, 33rd year in education, and a resident of Frisco, a block away, right over here. So I'd like to tease Tom and say this whole corner's not working. The snow's out of my nose.
Well,
Love the town.
if there's snow over there, you gotta let me know.
Yeah.
Yeah, we can put it on the tree.
What I actually would say as a resident of Frisco is I love it here and thank you all for what you do, for real. Love it, love it, love it. Okay, so after the last bond did not pass, we learned a lot of lessons. And among those were that we had asked for too much and we had too many items on there and housing wasn't necessarily the right fit for the bond, so we did a lot of rethinking. What we're gonna present to you today is a redo, look at our master plan for the next 10 years. And we'll give you a sense of our guiding principles, high school, middle school, snowy peaks, elementary, long-range planning, and hopefully get time to get the questions in there. What we're facing, some of you may know this, is declining enrollment in our schools. We're predicted to go down another 3% next year. I'll say 75-80% of school districts in Colorado are going down. That is also true for most parts of the country. Birth rates are part of that, immigration policies are part of that, other reasons, cost of living, et cetera. And so that along with rising operational costs, and we live in a state that does not fund public education at a very high level. We receive about $12,000 per student. That's one point of comparison. New York State's $32,000 per student. I came from Washington, it was $20,000 per student. So what we want to do is present you what we're thinking is and see what kind of questions and guidance you might have. And we'll split up the presentation. This is a little overview. We started a master planning process a few years ago. We went for a bond, it did not pass. We decided we better follow and find out from the community through a series of surveys what we didn't do correctly. And now we've been reviewing, redoing, and launched a master planning committee of about 40 people in total when everyone's there across this whole year to present to the board recently what they think we ought to do over the next 10 years. But no decisions have been made yet, and I think people think they have, but they haven't. We're in the community engagement phase. We're doing 4 of these presentations today as one example and see the feedback. And then the board will make decisions later this spring, and we'll make decisions about for the summer whether or not we'll hello. We have, I think this is very important to share, these guiding principles have led us in all of the work we're doing. So just going clockwise, the number one thing people come to me about is making sure our schools are safe and that their students feel like they belong. So that's one very important guiding principle. That we're running our district financially responsibly. Again, I'm just going clockwise, that we're doing long-range thinking. We're preparing your children or children you know or students for the future, which we're going to talk about, and delivering on a high-quality education. So, Kara, you're going to take from here on the high school.
So I'm gonna move through a lot of these slides pretty quickly in the interest of time, but we can always circle back with any questions that you have. As part of the master planning process, we did look at every building from a couple of different lenses. So there's the building condition, so that is building assessment systems that you've replaced, the age of the building. So that's really mechanical, roofing, things like that, as far as is the building in good condition or does it have a lot of deferred maintenance or need bigger repairs? We also looked at educational adequacy. So we are in the business of educating children. So are the spaces that children are learning in adequate for their education? And then you'll see that some buildings have some educational adequacy needs and some do not. And then the last is utilization. And so that's really looking at current enrollment versus building capacity. And so the main reason for looking at that is to be able to try to anticipate future enrollment trends. So are we going to have a space issue at buildings and need construction because we have more students attending and need more space, or are we in a declining enrollment, which is currently the environment that we're in, when we are seeing additional space in our buildings. So making sure that we're looking at all of those pieces for each one of our buildings. So you'll see the high school. So based on all of those different data points, each school is given a grade. So high school has a grade of B, so it's in fairly good condition. The main need at the high school is around the educational adequacy component, and specifically supporting our pathways programming. So some additional specialized lab spaces for skilled trades, health sciences, engineering and advanced manufacturing. Those are spaces that really do need some either additional space, like skilled trades, for example, needs a high bay enclosed space where you guys might be familiar with the tiny homes that the high school students have built. So giving them an indoor environment to build those homes in so they don't have to go shovel snow before they can even start class in the morning. And then also specialized lab equipment, like health sciences is a good example, setting up a classroom with equipment in it that would be found in the healthcare environment.
Can I ask something?
Yeah, please
You know, just to super quickly, maybe you all have heard this in Pathways, maybe we'll be talking about Pathways. So we did an analysis of where are high-skilled, high-wage jobs, and then backward map that into what therefore should our students experience. And that's where we came up with 8 pathways. And the students get a chance to get their toes into, for example, the skilled trades, and then also experience other core programming that would align with that, but they're not locked into a pathway. So we have pathways in computer science, advanced manufacturing, skilled trades, and then also, and more. And also just want to say that there's a nationwide and statewide effort to really get students more engaged at the high school level and really get them more hands-on in their learning. And the state's about to assess school districts, which I really appreciate, and that's called the Big 3, which are students getting a chance to earn concurrent enrollment credits, industry certifications, for example, welding, and also internship opportunities. So when we look at that and we think about our spaces, we feel like, and this is happening, this is not a unique to Summit thing, we feel like we have this great opportunity to really provide more unique spaces for students to have those experiences. and also external partnerships. So I'm sure you'll have more questions on that, but this is for me, very exciting, I think for all of us. And then we also, it's interesting messaging because we also have some budget cuts we need to make, so.
So, this is, schematics of the proposed, additional spaces at the high school. Summit Middle School, is in good condition. We have, technically, the age of the building is one of the oldest in the district, but it's been remodeled several times. And our most recent addition was in 2016. So in general, this building is in very good condition. So just a few maintenance items are on the list for the middle school. Snowy Peaks is in one wing of the middle school building itself. And their main needs are around educational adequacy. So because they are a smaller specialized program that's sort of a school within another school, there are certain amenities that they don't have. The biggest one is a gym. So they teach physical education in a lot of different ways, outside as much as possible, sometimes with indoor equipment. And so there are a few other things like that that are just adequacy needs for the program itself. When it comes to our elementary schools, they're all on one slide here. So you'll see the majority of our elementary schools are also in relatively good condition. The number on the far right there is the current priority 1 and 2 deferred maintenance. So according to our policies, priority 1s are critical needs that could potentially close school. So that's like a leaking roof, a boiler that's not working, those kinds of things. Priority 2 are not necessarily needs that are quite that critical in nature, but need to be addressed within the next 5 years. So these are the most urgent needs across each building. You'll notice that Breckenridge Elementary, in fact, our Zoom is covering that number. The number is $24.7 million for Breckenridge Elementary. That is the oldest building in the district, and so because of that, the building itself in a day-to-day, when you walk into the building, it still seems like a relatively nice building. We've kept it in good condition, but all of the systems behind it are aging. They're all 50 years or more old because it is an aged building. So that means that it has a greater number of deferred maintenance and condition items that need to be addressed in Breckenridge.
What is the Frisco 3 million, like what do they need?
A lot of that is priority 2. So Frisco is also an older building, not quite as old as Breckenridge. So again, it's not a large number of critical items, but just some aging systems that need replaced. And Dillon Valley is low. That question comes up a lot. We did a lot of unexpected repairs at Dillon Valley following the fire a couple of years ago. So a large portion of the building had carpet replaced, HVACs cleaned, a lot of things like that were addressed as part of the restoration following the fire. Okay, this is still my slide, right?
Yes.
Just
Please.
checking, because I ran over this morning and I presented Tony's
You know,
slides
you
too.
love declining enrollment.
Um,
That's it, it's supposed to be funny.
You guys may have seen in the media across the state of Colorado and really across the nation, we are in a declining enrollment environment. In general, birth rates are down across the country. And so because of that, we just have less students coming into the educational system that are graduating. I think last year's graduating class is one of the largest. And so we are going to see some decline in enrollment over the next several years. And this chart here shows our forecast from our 25 actual numbers, that was our October count this year, to what we project through 2032. And you'll see that the only elementary school that has any growth is Upper Blue, and that is because of the runway housing project development that's happening in Breck. So our demographer, when they look at forecasting future growth, anytime there's workforce housing, that does typically lead to some enrollment growth. So that area is projected to have a little bit of growth, but other than that, almost all the other elementary schools are projected to stay relatively flat to declining over the next few years. And we're currently getting ready to start adopting doing our budget work for next year. And we're actually forecasting about a 3% decline next year in our enrollment, again, because of those larger 12th grade classes graduated and kinder classes coming in.
With that, obviously, there's been discussion around the community of potential for school closures.
Yes.
How do you anticipate what school would close and where the enrollment would go?
Perfect
They're
segue.
gonna get on that.
That's
I know they're gonna get on, but I got a
Next
question at what you're on right there.
Sure.
Do you take in account of our low income, our light tech projects that we're doing here, the 100 units that we're doing in Frisco, like you're saying, in Blue Valley, or in the Blue, Upper Blue is building, housing, and we're doing kind of the same. Not at that scale probably, but we are looking at that demographic that there are gonna be some kids probably moving into those places, parents with kids.
Yeah.
Have you guys looked at that or?
We did
know
look
that?
at that. Our demographer actually contacted all the counties and towns to get an idea of
Okay.
workforce housing that's in development and what years you expect that to have that finished and online. The interesting thing about Summit County, and this is true for all resort areas, are student yield. So that's what demographers look at, is the number of students generated from different types of housing. So usually single family homes generate like 2 to 3 students, 2.5 I think. That number is coming down because of declining birth rates, but in resort areas, it's even lower. I think families up here just choose to have less children. It's harder to have a family up here. And live in smaller units too.
Yeah.
And so they did look at the development and then made a student projection based on that. And so again, those numbers are in these numbers, but still are not going to be enough to offset the decline.
Question.
So I think this slide's yours.
Okay, so this is counterintuitive for a lot of folks, but I'll speak about the financial part and then also school size. So we have, if under any amount under 207 students is caught, we're losing money. And so, and Kara could explain that in more depth, but we have several schools below 207, and we have a lot of financial pressures in terms of not enough funding for schools. Federal cuts to the state that naturally impact us in a flow through, so it puts us in a tough spot. Also, it is hard to educate when schools are small. That's the counterintuitive part. I know some people love small schools. You have one right across the street. There's one right at the Peak School. When our schools get small, we have a really hard time allocating staffing that can give full programming. So we end up, for example, with maybe a half a teacher at a grade level, or splitting grade levels, or not being able to provide art or music or whatever it may be. So really the research is 300 students or more, or usually 300 to 500 is a really comfortable programming for running a solid school. You get the economies of scale. I was a principal of 3 different schools, one at 340, one 580, one 670, elementary and middle schools. I thought the school of 580 actually in my case was a really good number. We're not talking about that big of a number, but the smaller the school, it actually was hard to manage. So why don't we go to the next slide? Closing a school, people would think, or consolidating a school would save you a lot of money. We're estimating about 715,000 that you'll see here, and that is the fixed cost of closing a school. So it's essentially we have to still continue having our students would move and teachers need to move. The savings are on the fixed costs. Why don't we go to the next one? So we have a lot of slides, I don't want to take too much of your all's time. So yes, consolidation is the hottest topic on the table. This is a part you probably would really want to know about in more depth. Closing Breckenridge, we've been looking at the possibility of closing Breckenridge Elementary or closing Frisco Elementary. I'm sure that's a question you'll have, or potentially closing Summit Cove. We can go to the next. Closing Breckenridge or consolidating with Upper Blue is not really a new idea in Summit County. I'm sure many of you have heard this. We have 2 schools there. They're both relatively small. Last time around in the bond, we had polls that suggested that building a new school would make the most sense. That is not what we got as a result in that bond. It was really, no, you should really look at either modifying it or consolidating it. So we learned a pretty good lesson there. We're sorry that we didn't get it right the first time, but we really, and now enrollment's more of a challenge. So in this case, you're moving most students to Upper Blue. Upper Blue is not quite big enough, that's where it gets tricky. We would have to add some space at Upper Blue. We can talk about that. I'm sure you have a lot of questions. Another is to move all students to their home boundaries. Colorado is a choice school state, so we've been trying to honor that, where you get to pick the school you want to go to. We could look at that. Close Frisco, I will tell you where the community or the committee on this landed. It was also considered. You can see that would be closing Frisco and moving students to other schools, particularly Upper Blue. When you look at that, I would offer my own perspective here. I don't see why that makes sense when you already have 2 schools at Breckenridge, you close Frisco and move more students to Breckenridge. So you'll see in a minute that this idea finished third among those ideas. It's not a popular idea.
Yeah, we're a big boo. Big boo on that.
Jimmy wants to drive to Breck every day.
Yeah, nobody wants to drive to Breck. Why would they want to drive to Breck?
2 times a day, you'd be crushing parents.
Yeah.
Well, we just left Breckenridge and they were a big boo on our presentation.
And the one thing is, we got the middle school, we got the middle school here, you know, we got the middle school, you got the administrative offices here in Frisco.
Yeah.
You know, it just
We're
seems
very
like
centrally located.
centrally located, but the families who are driving there already are getting ready to drive to middle school. You know, they're doing the same drive, where we would have to drive to Breck for years, and then our kids would go to middle school. You know, so that's just my personal.
Well, the community survey we did was a profound no. You know, some people liked the idea, but it was not popular.
Yeah.
The most popular ideas among the 3 were to combine Breck with Upper Blue, followed by Summit Cove. And the interesting challenge we have with Summit Cove, you see it's 61% full. That's not full. And the school is at 168 students, predicted to go to 150 next year. So we do have to figure out what to do about that, and I'll show you in a second. This is the long-range 10-year plan, phase 1, 2, and 3. Do you want to take this one, Kara?
Sure.
Yeah.
So this is where the committee landed. So our committee met from October, I think, through January. So really dug deeply into all of these different pieces of data. And then our last meeting in January, we said, okay, lay this out in a 10-year time span for things that should be done immediately in phase 1, in a few years in phase 2, and then really long-term in phase 3. And so this is where the committee landed. So addressing priority 1 and 2 deployments across all schools was a high priority for phase 1. High school pathways, so that's the slide that we showed with some of that addition of specialized lab spaces. The high school track and field, we didn't spend much time talking on, but our high school track was expected to live for 10 years and need to be replaced in 10 years. We're now at year 15. So we continue to test it and make sure it's safe every year, but we know that the field, I said the track, but I meant the field, the turf field at the high school. And so we do know that we need to plan for replacement because it is just reaching the end of its life. And then the consolidation of Breckenridge and Upper Blue was the committee's recommendation with building on to Upper Blue. So we didn't spend a lot of time talking about, we did look at one scenario where we could combine Breckenridge and Upper Blue with no construction, but there are pretty significant programming changes that would have to happen because the Upper Blue's building is not big enough to just take all the current Breckenridge elementary students. So in order to combine those 2 schools without construction, we would have to look at moving preschool out of Upper Blue and reusing those current classrooms for K-5. We would also have to look at adjusting our boundaries and redoing boundary lines. so that we shifted some students to Frisco from the Upper Blue area. We would also have to look at choice enrollment and potentially limiting some choice enrollment. So choice enrollment is families that live in other parts of the county that maybe their boundaries, there's the boundary that they live within is a different school, but they are choosing to attend Upper Blue. And so we felt like, and the committee agreed, those are some pretty big programming implications. And so that is not the first choice for the committee.
I have 2 questions there.
Please.
First would be on school choice. You said that is a state of Colorado kind of program. What ability do you have to limit that? Is that within Colorado law?
Yeah, so Colorado law requires you to have school choice, but the school district does have options. If you consider your school to be full, you can say and you're not in the boundary of that school, we can't take any more. Or if there's a programmatic reason that, for example, a certain special ed need you may have at the school, and that school doesn't have it, we can say no in those circumstances. And does that help?
Yeah, that absolutely answers the question. The second question is going to be, obviously, Summit County, we're a county, we're not just small towns that are all by themselves. So we have folks that are commuting from one town to another. As part of this research, was there any survey to parents as to if they live in a community but work in another community? Do we have insight as to how many parents in Breckenridge might be traveling through Frisco or going to work in Silverthorne?
I don't know if we have all the where people work, but what we do have is, and Carrie, you can speak to this, is the number of percentage of students that stay at their home school and the percentage that move to other schools. And our survey also suggested if we were to consolidate schools, where do you think you would send your child? So we have all of those data as well.
And in terms of the choice enrollment, that information is presented each year as part of my enrollment report to the board. So we don't have that table in this particular slide deck, but it is out there in other district presentations. In general, we have a lot of movement across the county. There's a lot of reasons parents choose to attend a different school. And so that was definitely a point in our planning here, is making sure that we took that into consideration and what that impact to families would be if we started limiting that in any way.
I'll add one thing, and then maybe I know we're up on time and open it up to more questions or wrap, whatever y'all need. You'll see the far right column, which I assume you would probably, I'm assuming like the scope primarily not supported is the consolidation of Frisco with or without boundary changes. And a lot of that does boil down to you don't have that many here that goes, I think it's 128 local students. A lot of your students come, or a lot of Frisco students come from other parts of the county and choose to come here. Love the school, love to come. Also, just as you already stated, right, the town of Frisco, having its central, having an elementary school here, having a middle school here, there's a whole bunch of reasons why that was not popular. So it's, you can see it's on the far right. And then this is more of a master plan timeline and contingencies, and so maybe we should just talk about next steps and see if there's questions. So it's amazing in this job, I'm sure it happens for the town too. The number of things I hear that we're doing that aren't even close to what we're doing, right? Because this is traveled everywhere, so.
No, we only deal with truth.
You deal with the truth. You're the truth factory. There's no fake news around here. But anyway, where we are is, so no decisions have been made. The committee, Tom was part of that committee, there's about 40 people on the committee representing the whole county, has presented to the board the options you saw, and now the board has directed me to go out and make sure we're presenting everywhere we can and getting input. So any input would be great after, and then the board has a study session in March. And then we'll have more community meetings over the next 4 to 6 weeks that we'll be advertising. It's most likely the board will make some consideration or decisions in late April, early May. And then if we go for a consolidated BREC option and need to consider a bond for that, then they'll make a decision on that in the summer. So, Tom, mindful of everyone's time, so just I think that's pretty much where we are. Just see if you have input or questions.
I have a question about Frisco Elementary. I'm not sure if they're still doing it, but a couple of years ago, maybe for 2 years, they were combining classes, like first and second grade. And for me, my kid is in special ed, so he's in 3rd grade right now. I mean, I can almost see Frisco Elementary from my house.
Yeah.
But I drive to Silverthorne every day, and he did 2 years of preschool, like right out of early intervention. So, it's been 5 years now that I've been doing that, but my choice to do that was because, in my opinion, they seemed to have a more stable, organized, kind of, I don't want to use the word flourishing, but they had a good special ed system, in my opinion. So that was my reason for not going to Frisco Elementary, and I don't know why the classes were combined. Maybe it was funding for schools or whatever that reason was, but I don't know, I'm just throwing that out there so you know from a parent that I don't know, I don't know how, well, I do from even the state level of special education dollars. And it makes me so discouraged overall. But I'm also a part of the Blue Skies Behavioral Therapy group in Frisco. We go there every day after school. And I meet a lot of families that homeschool or choose not, their kids are not enrolled in public school. And I'm just wondering, I don't know how, if you're interested in pulling some of those students back into the school, or I don't know what that would look like. I personally am having a good experience with my child in special ed. I think his experience, there's always little things, right? You got that IEP process that's but I feel like I'm being supported in my school. But anyways, I'm just throwing this information out just about the boundaries and moving around through schools. And if we kept those boundaries open, between towns or whatever, and, I don't know, I like reading this, I'm pretty doubtful, but the transportation part, I don't know how many special ed students are going to different schools outside of their town. But the transportation part is something I've always been, because I drive there so many times a day. Anyway, I'm just kind of rambling, but.
Well, just a couple quick points. One, we did combining of classes, grade levels. It's not uncommon actually around the country, very uncommon here. It was very routine where it came from outside Seattle. However, Todd had to do that because of declining FTE and declining enrollment in FTE. It's not very popular. Silverthorne does do a great job of special education. Frisco does a great job with various things as well. Todd doesn't necessarily have the same possible options as Silverthorne.
Okay, so I made
You didn't make that up.
Okay.
No, that's all fact. And transportation's a challenge. We can get into any of those details in another time if you want.
I mean, my daughter rode the bus for a couple of years, and I get it. But yeah, I just, the combining of classes with my kid being in special ed wasn't very attractive for me. Otherwise, we'd probably be at Frisco. But, I'm trying to set him up too to be the best person he can be, and not just, as a IEP person, it's like, I can't even think about that, let alone 1 grade. I don't know, it just caused me a lot of.
Thank you.
And I think that's, precisely the challenge of operating these small schools, is that staff does get stretched very thin, or sometimes depending on enrollment numbers, we really have to combine classes, just to make the numbers work. So.
My daughter was in that, so she was first and second. She was second, and then the first graders came in, so she was only in it 1 year. But I don't think you're doing it anymore for Frisco right now.
No.
That was just, I think it was just 1 year.
So I should move back.
Yeah, it was just 1 year.
I have a question on Snowy Peaks Middle School integration, how separate that is, and if we're at, such low enrollment at the middle school, 58% utilization and 44% at Snowy Peaks, is there any opportunity to combine those resources, like the gym space or the lunchroom, what is the separation there, and is that possible, or what are the reasons that it's not happening?
Great question. Another lesson learned from the last one, right? We talked about building a new Snowy Peaks, is one to have a better facility. We heard from the community, you're asking for too much, and so fair. So moving forward, so for example, I've told the middle school in Snowy Peaks, they need to combine and share the PE space. For the CTE programming, we'll be able to do some current technical ed at their school, but we're also gonna be doing some busing of students over to the high school to integrate them into the high school courses as well. And we're looking to trim the costs and still maintain what makes Snowy Peak special, but give those students more experiences. It's interesting on the capacity, there was an idea, because there is capacity at the middle school, of actually moving Frisco Elementary into the middle school. That didn't do very well either. I think people were really nervous about having a small number of elementary kids with a lot of middle school students. Maybe it's a little different aspect. Did that help?
Oh, absolutely. So yeah, those resources can be shared.
We're trying, yes, that is our intent. This time around, share resources, partner better, ask for less. We haven't found, if we go for a bond, we haven't picked a number, but I guarantee it'll be a lot less.
Could you speak a little bit about the specialness of Snowy Peaks?
Yeah, sure. How many of y'all know Snowy Peaks? A little bit. And just, again, I'm looking at your time. I know what it is when you're trying to manage board meetings, so just cut me off. But Snowy Peaks, so a lot of times alternative high schools are the place students go when they're not doing well in the high school, but then they're not really all that well supported over there, and they just feel like, boo, I'm in the alternative. That is not our Snowy Peaks. I mean, we're on now, I think I get the chills because it's amazing. I think we're on 10 years in a row of 100% graduation. And that's unbelievable. It is listed as one of the top 9 alternative schools in the state. And it's just the love and care they have for those students. And most of the students, some have chosen it because they just need a small environment, because you can choose to go there. You're not always just sent there, right? It's got a more of a magnet feel to it. I spent a lot of time over there. The students feel loved, heard, cared for. They have a lot of hands-on learning experiences, probably not enough, but they have great ones. And I've never seen a group of people who cares about kids so much as Snowy Peaks. So recent graduation, 3 Snowy Peaks students said that it was hard to hear and also great. We weren't sure they'd even be alive today without Snowy Peaks. So it's special.
Yeah, I just wanted to say it out loud.
If you close like Breckenridge or whatever school, what do you do with the property? What are you thinking of doing with,
Great question.
Because the Montessori school is looking for something and, right out of school, PK, but the building needs a lot of work.
Does the district own that land?
Yeah. And Kara can speak, if you don't mind, to the value of the land, which isn't quite what people think, and I can speak to the number of people who've emailed and said, hey, I'd love to give you a great offer. Right now, that hasn't been decided, so we're trying to get to phase 1, whether or not the board wants to consolidate. And we do have a general operating principle. The way we're thinking about it is how can it still be used for public good if we get to that, and of course, public good could be defined in a lot of ways, and not simply for profit. But we haven't decided yet, and maybe Carrie, you can talk about.
So it is zoned as school use in the zoning. So we have looked at appraisals on other pieces of property in the Breckenridge area, specifically the property by Upper Blue and then also the McCain parcel in the last few years. And their appraisal is surprisingly low. So I think there's a perception because of land value in Breckenridge when it's developed into housing that it's millions and millions of dollars. And 10 acres zoned for governmental use that really right now could only be used for school use and it would have to be rezoned to be used for anything else is surprisingly low. So I think that it is a decision point that we haven't really gotten to yet of what will happen with that land, but it's something that we'll have to evaluate carefully because the other thing is that an elementary school best practice is 10 acres of land to build an elementary school. In Summit County, there are not very many 10-acre parcels left. So we have to make sure that we're being strategic and thinking toward the future too.
That parcel is directly adjacent to Carter Park Belt,
It
it's
is,
not.
yeah.
So if the town of Breckenridge was interested, they would have the ability to rezone that and potentially extend the public use of the park or something there.
Yes, yeah,
Those would be the people who could make that decision.
yes.
And I think they definitely have some interest, although I'm not speaking for their old town council, I'm just saying.
But you know, the school board, of course, is dealing with the thought process of what are we gonna need in 100 years? We don't have any idea. And land, like they say, land is scarce in that.
Are we good? Any
I
other
just want to
questions?
say thank you for coming and talking this through. I know there's been a lot of questions and I've tried to do my own digging, but I really appreciate the time to come and talk.
You're welcome. As a wrap up for us, there's a master planning, you just Google Summit School District Master Planning webpage, has all this information. We're gonna be sending out a lot more information. There, if you don't get something, you can just text, email me, it's probably the fastest, it's called A View of the Summit. Hopefully some of you get that, which is every Friday, giving you an update on where we are. Text me, come on in, talk, it'd be great. Managing information is rough, you know, so thank you for that, yeah.
Thank you guys for your
Thank you
time.
both.
Great
Thank you.
questions.
Appreciate it.
Thank you, have a great day.
We might just take a couple minutes before agenda item number 2, discussion of the 2024 International Code Council Code adoption.
Take care.
There you go. Maybe you should give them Carl's number. Might school them though.
My personal. Yeah. But if you're gonna use it for some public purpose. Thank you, man, thank you.
Yeah, because you're not gonna need it
Exactly.
later.
Exactly.
Thank you for all your help.
Sure. See how helpful I was.
Well, you sent that very detailed information, so.
I mean,
Sure.
Just like whenever you want to get started, I just have to run up to the printer upstairs. But whenever you want to start, we're good to go.
Just Katie.
She does not. Nope, I confirmed. And it ratchets down. Those are the Telluride.
Oh, no, that. Like unincorporated parts, you know what I mean, there's all those like.
The all candy.
Yeah.
And we
Candy bars.
the place right there. Highlands are big, but they're not, yeah, they're probably less.
Yes. Sorry. That's all right, I know it's
But everyone's
You know, we're always dealing with stuff and people after. They all have standards. It's fire valve.
Campbell's over there.
Yeah, you're right.
They haven't done it yet. So it's like some residents that's already happening in Multiplication. This is the whole time. Multiplication already had that.
A little backstory. That's what they're.
I just think it's good footage.
And they don't, yeah.
Yeah, sure.
If you're counting lives, stuff, this and that, there's other ways.
Well, so she just.
That's okay.
So,
Maybe your kitchen area is the fire.
Are you guys good over there? Yeah. Okay, we are gonna kick it off with a discussion for the 2024 International Code Council Code Adoption. We do have a few people in chambers that if you guys wanna make a public comment, we're gonna ask that you're gonna do it at 7 o'clock when we start the regular council meeting. So thank you for being here and thanks for all of your input. And I guess you're just John's gonna take it over, or Katie?
Yeah, we're looking for guidance, as you know, from council tonight as we move forward. You all, as a reminder, received the memo from myself, which just gave a brief overview. You received the memo from John, and then you also had a couple of public comments that were included in your packet. And then just as of yesterday and today, there was a couple of other public comments provided to you via email. If any of you have not gotten a chance to read your email, I did print those just to make sure you all have seen them and have a copy if you needed it. The one update I'll provide, since John and I assembled the packet information, is that on Friday we had a really good meeting with Summit Fire in Red, White, and Blue, who are here today also. It turns out the town hadn't actually received the most updated amendments proposed by Summit Fire. So a lot of that was clarified and explained, and a good conversation was held with those guys and John. So he has some updates. They had some things that John had suggested didn't make a lot of sense they were proposing, and they agreed to compromise on some language potentially. And also there were things that once they explained the reasoning and purpose behind it, made more sense to John. So John can give you a little update for that. You also have the representatives from both fire districts here, just as the knowledge based on those amendments. But because we didn't hear from any council members over the last 10 days since you got your packet, we don't know what you want tonight. So we'll let you guide us if you want John to give his memo updates, or you just want to ask questions, since we don't know.
Well, let me just follow that and say the reason that we are meeting in work session today is certainly to get guidance, but our next step is to prepare ordinances, or Thad will be preparing ordinances in order to implement code. So obviously, within the memos, there's dates associated that we have to meet in order to do certain things. That's why we're here, so that we can prepare the ordinances correctly.
I have one question for Mr. Mayor Pro Tem. We have some experts in the field here. You had just directed that they would have to wait until 7 p.m. for public comment. Would we be able to invite them to a future work session and provide their expertise on this subject? Just like the fire district is here to provide insight there, I think those experts we have could give us some very good insight.
the one thing I think what Tom just said is we're on a tight
We have
line
until,
there.
the deadline is June to
Yeah, I mean,
adopt certain
yeah,
things.
certain-
We need to write an ordinance before that, but
Yeah, and that takes some time, and you an ordinance has to be adopted over 2 meetings, of course, in order to be put in place. You know, even when those ordinances are prepared, we will have our range of experts available, and there will be public comments on those actions. So you will have plenty of time to consider all that, is what I'm saying.
I would also suggest you utilize the town's resource and John Schumacher, who we have a contract with and is an expert on the realms that you're talking about and also has a lot of experience. So he is here to answer questions that anybody might have. We had asked everyone to contact him, nobody did. Just to be blunt, use him tonight, that's what he's here for. So don't be afraid to ask the questions and clarifications that you're looking for also.
I guess with that, I would love to hear just your overview. I know the last time we spoke about it was very quick, because we had other things. But I'd love to just hear what you have to say, and then maybe that would like spark a discussion and we can all decide.
Do you have questions on topics, or what do you want to know about?
Did you read this, the one that he put out? You know, I don't know whether we just need to go over that a little bit. You know, that seemed to be the hot topics, and, you know, there are the pathways and, you know, the sprinklers and stuff, and I think there's some cleanup things you have on multi-buildings with 50 or 300 occupancies and stuff. Is that something that, because that's what I've been studying, kind of
Yeah.
going through that, and those seems like the most things that we want to change or something. We want to like
Do you want to
really
run
push
through their
back
memo a
Jessica
little
Brody.
bit?
Yeah, I think we're looking for the prescriptive pathways for which ones we would end up collectively deciding. And within those is where
Yeah, thanks.
our questions lie,
Yeah,
right? So that's where I would like to hear from John as far as how you feel on probably each pathway. You know, if Zach, if you feel like there's something that hasn't been answered, I guess bring it up and we'll see where we can get with that.
yeah, I'm just interested in hearing perspectives from all the different professionals in the field. Obviously, I trust John, I appreciate what you've done for our town, and also I've heard a lot of feedback from contractors and folks in the field that you've made the process a lot more streamlined. But I am just maybe have some concern that in an attempt to make it easier for builders or some processes more streamlined, we might be losing sight of our climate goals. I just want to hear perspectives from everybody that's in this field, yourself, but also others that come from a different background.
And do you need what was submitted this week, have you received that in your email? You have that, because if anyone wants that in paper, just let me know.
I got another one.
Hey, Andy.
Yes, Rick?
So I would suggest we start looking at 3 separate codes. Or at least topic piles. Pick a pile and let's work through it.
Yeah, why don't we start with the energy code, because it's at the top of John's memo, and it's kind of what Andy, if that works, just asked about the 3 prescriptive measures, so we'll focus on energy
We go through
first.
guidance at each step too, that way we talk about it and go through.
Yeah.
Okay.
Seems sufficient.
What questions are there about energy code? There are 3 paths. We have prescriptive compliance and performance, and then our ERI, our energy rating index. I put some of that in the memo that I sent out. I gave some examples of the requirements based on those different paths. What can I answer, what can I explain that would help you understand what the options are?
I would say, or I'll just start it off if that's okay. How about on the prescriptive path? Some of the idea that we've heard from the experts in town have to do with if we chose this path because of the numbers with the HERS ratings and whatnot, it would end up being counterintuitive and essentially lowering, and this is kind of what Zach's talking about, but lowering our goals of
our environmental, stewardship.
Climate action.
Yes, climate action, thank you.
Okay, I can talk a little bit about that. So, I think that is subjective in terms of how you, what you achieve doing the prescriptive path. I think I put in my memo that the average, her score is gonna be 57 nationwide going with the prescriptive path. I know some of the information that you received said they've seen something different than that, right? I also think that if we were to search for it, we could probably find examples also that say something different than that, show that using the prescriptive path, you could come in the low 50s and meet the requirements that are in the code as written. It's an easy path, right? It's prescriptive, you've got a list, you have minimum requirements you have to meet, they're minimum requirements. While some builders will meet just the minimum requirements, been working in Frisco for 3 years now, and we have quality builders here, and quite honestly, I think given an option for the 3 paths, a lot of them will opt for the ERI path anyway. It's a good selling point for them. There are some tax advantages to builders who build homes that are energy efficient, and I think a lot of them will opt to take that path anyway. But having the prescriptive path makes it a lot easier for them to estimate the project and plan the project, to execute the project. And it also makes the process a little simpler for them as they go through. So that's the advantage to the prescriptive path. And as I said, we could put, this is like when we developed the codes, we could put 100 people in the room and debate it for days and never come to any resolution, because there's going to be folks that say it's perfectly fine and that's why it's in there, and other folks are going to say it's not stringent enough. And in relation to what we're doing now is the ZERB program, the Zero Energy Ready Homes. That is more restrictive than any of this, right? And what I'm seeing anyway, when I'm looking at energy results, I'm seeing a lot of houses that are going through the ZERB program and are in the mid to upper 40s is where they're coming out on their HERS ratings right now. There is an updated version of the ZERB program, so if we were to move to the updated version, it's more stringent than what we have already. If you look at some of the process when some of the sustainable building code was sort of revised and implemented most recently, a lot of it was based on the 2021 code. The Department of Energy will, their information says that to move from the 2021 to the 2024 is about an 8% savings to just do those without amendment. So according to the Department of Energy, there's savings just within the code itself between the 2021 and the 2024. The difference being for us that we had implemented the ZERB program, and that was even more restrictive than the 2021 in some ways. But we also offered a prescriptive path through the Summit Sustainable Building Code. So I think for me, it seemed like that was the intent previously, was to offer multiple paths. And that's why my suggestion was to adopt the code as it's published, because it offers multiple paths. And I think we've talked about this before, and I probably put it in here, but it's a long process to adopt the codes. It's a 3-year process, and quite honestly, when the 27 comes out, a lot of people won't be happy with that, and they'll immediately start on the 30. And there's a lot of information that goes into it. There's a significant number of stakeholders, people, building scientists, and climate action folks and other people to go into the development of the code. And not everybody gets what they want in the code when they're in that process, but typically when the code is published, it's generally representative of most of the stakeholders that have been a part of the process. And the code represents what the majority of people involved in the process, who typically are experts and are knowledgeable in that area, have decided that they can live with, and that is a value. So, there's other paths besides the prescriptive path. The performance path is more complicated. It's It's similar to the ERI, but it's more complicated because it's not just achieving a specific goal of 52 or 50 or whatever the goal is set at. And then there, of course, is the ERI path, and I think everybody kind of understands that and the HERS process and how all of that kind of works. But in the 2024 code, it's important to know that you not only have to achieve that ERI, there's a credit system. So you have to achieve this 52, and the 52 is not that's the maximum, right? So we're not saying you should get a 52, right? Most of the code is a minimum standard. The 52 that is in the 2024 is a maximum number for your HERS. You're looking to be below that 52. And our builders are doing that regularly already. Most of them, what I see out in the field, are putting in windows with U factors of 0.27, 0.28. That's going to be a standard requirement in the 2024 unamended. So there's things like that they're doing already as a part of the ZER program that will just be standard in the 2024 code. And I don't see the builders having difficulty getting below that 52. And there's a suggestion to lower the number to 50, but most of the builders are below 50 already on the ZER program, and a lot of the requirements that they're meeting within the ZER program are already incorporated into the 2024. So I suspect that a lot of the builders, they're just used to the process, and they will achieve those scores in the upper 40s. They're not going to risk trying to hit right at the 52, right? It's a difficult process if you get to the end and you have not achieved your goal. It's difficult, right? So none of them are looking to hit right at 51 or 52. They give themselves a little leeway in there. So is that?
So if we choose the prescriptive process, would it nullify the ZER program, or can we still achieve that if if a builder chose to, or a developer, or
all three paths would be available, and that would be the only difference, is that it's not mandated to participate and do the ZER program, but certainly you could. And like I said, for a lot of the builders who are already used to doing that anyway, and have been working through that program, they are likely to continue that, because also it offers, like I said, it does offer tax credits and other things to the builder for doing that. So I suspect that a lot of the builders that I've been working with in the town of Frisco over the past few years would continue to do that. It just wouldn't be mandated for all.
When we say
Hey, Andy.
Yeah, Rick.
Sorry, guys, are you hearing an echo?
No.
Okay, good. I just want to make sure it's me. I'm just going to try and make a suggestion here that having looked at all the different options, and if you look at what our current code is, what the 24 is, and what's coming in the future, and I forget, I'll get all the acronyms wrong. There's a carbon one coming up in 20. I forget in the next few years. I would suggest that we take our current code adoption where they are and push towards that higher level of regulation, which I believe is the 50 number, and other aspects that come with it. And consider John's recommendation of having all three available for certification. That way we're achieving our town value by keeping our sustainability code to a very high level, while at the same time giving our contractors more than one pathway to get there. I tend to agree with John that they'll probably go with the one they've been using over the last years. But if there was a reason to do another one, this would give them more flexibility. But I think we have an opportunity here to find a way to increase above the 24 and above our current level. And if we looked around the county, we'd probably find an example, a mirror.
Thank you, Rick. Is that all?
For now.
Okay.
You know, I look at that too, and if we're doing the ZERO program anyways already, and people are shooting for that, you know, and just making the codes a little smaller, you know, the sustainable building codes and stuff. You know, is there something we can get rid of some things, you know, and I know the 2018 we're trying to get rid of in the Summit, you know, building codes, if we're doing zero housing already, is it just to go with that? And not have the 3 path, you know, or not, the 3 pathways aren't really the Summit sustainable building code, is that one pathway? Or the pathways are different things for performance and that.
Correct.
Yeah.
So I'm not advocating for any particular path or.
Yeah.
So my role is to make sure that you understand what the options are.
Yeah.
It's up to the council. If you want to maintain what we have currently, we can do that. I just want to make sure you understand. You know, when we talked, there was some direction that was to minimize the code amendments as much as possible, which is what we've tried to do. And I just want to explain that if we're doing that, this is the way the code as written works. But we can do whatever we want with the code as long as we're not lessening the code as written and adopted by the state. So if we wanted to stick with the ZERO program, the council certainly could do that. If you wanted to do 3 pathways and lower the ERI, from 52 to 50 or whatever number, you could do that. Whatever you choose to do, I will construct the ordinance and the amendments with Fed's help to make sure that it functions in a way.
Your recommendation is keeping the pathways.
It is. I think it's good to have those options, and it also minimizes those amendments to the code. And I do think, as I said in there's a lot of input from a lot of people that went into the development of those numbers.
So if we're all, not all, I mean, if we're just have been kind of dialed in and moving forward on a more stringent ZERO system pathway, and if you're finding that most developers and builders are gravitating towards that anyway, what is the reason to not push forward then and just make it? That's absolute. You know, we're not going to give the option for the second and third tier.
So I guess from my perspective, I also have heard a lot about housing affordability. And being more stringent than the code does raise the cost of construction.
So that's really the only, however, that being the case, you are seeing more and more developers still going with the top tier, ZERO.
Well, right now it's mandated.
Right.
So whether or not they will continue to do that when it's not mandated is not certain. I suspect some will, some won't, but right now it's mandated, so that's why they're doing it.
Yeah, well, that's kind of my point is, so that if we open that up, how many do you think, I mean, I know it's an estimate, would kind of gravitate towards moving out of that?
If I had to guess, and when it is a guess, I'd probably say a third of them would probably move to a prescriptive path.
Okay.
It's, there is, in addition to the cost of implementing those additional requirements, there is, if you're outside the prescriptive path, there's the cost of working with energy raters and others to develop all of that process. Whereas if you're within a prescriptive path, it's a lot simpler and can probably be done without those costs also.
When we speak to housing affordability and increased restrictions, raising the cost of housing, that also lowers the cost in the long run for utilities and all of those things. So the initial buyer, you know, if we're talking about a custom home, that's one thing, but if we're talking about workforce housing solutions and things like that, the town is already, you know, supplementing those costs. So your opinion there, you know, do you see the long-term savings as a benefit?
So looking at information on the Department of Energy's website, the move from 50 or 52 down to 45 saves about $180 a year in energy savings. And it's a significantly larger cost in construction. It's about a 15 to 16-year return on investment. The move to electrification, while from my perspective, and this is my personal perspective, I think that's good. I have concerns about the fact that right now, Xcel is talking about difficulty in providing electricity for what we have now, and talking about the possibility of some blackouts here and there in the upcoming year and other things like that, and a push for additional electrification, which the code definitely does. It gives you additional credits for that. Without first addressing that, for me, I question that a little bit. So I think I understand trying to kind of move towards some of the more stringent requirements in advance, but if we get this done before the 1st of July, the low energy carbon code will not apply until your next adoption, which typically is 6 years. So there's a lot of time in there for things to change, right? Time for Xcel to address electrification in a different way, and maybe provide some upgrades that they're talking about and get those upgrades in place and other things like that. A lot of that is speculation. Right? They're not sure when they're going to upgrade the grid and how they're going to upgrade the grid, and they've talked about how much it costs and other things like that. There's a lot of different options, and like I said, if you go and watch folks talk about this, they'll go round and round about this. Everyone has a different opinion in terms of when it's best to do these things and how to best do these things in terms of electrification and implementing some more stringent requirements, and the return on investment, and at what point it affects that affordability and that and availability for folks. So that's not something that I can tell you. I can't provide you direction on that. I certainly can give you a lot of information. You have to make your own decision on what you want to do.
Now, one thing to at least provide a counterpoint to the electrification part and Xcel upgrading their equipment is that there is a mandate for Xcel under the Mountain Energy Project for Summit County and other counties in order to do that, to actually and it's in place. They have to do it now. And so it's more than a promise.
But is there a timeline to that mandate?
Absolutely.
And what is that timeline?
I can't speak to that. I'm not an expert on it.
Am I reading this right? July 2026?
For Xcel to be.
Oh, no, I guess so.
No, that's and so that's, for me, it's like we're putting the code in place prior to putting the upgrades in place, right?
And is that where you're saying it wouldn't take effect for another 6 years or so?
Or whenever we decided to do some sort of new code adoption. If you adopt new codes after that, then you're required to adopt low energy carbon code.
So what would that transition look like? Let's say we keep everything as is right now and then eventually adopt the low energy carbon code past July. What does that jump look like for the town?
That's not completely clear yet, because it's not completely, all of the requirements are not fully determined at this point. And so you could adopt the low energy carbon code at any time, right? You're not required to wait until you adopt a new code. So a year from now, 2 years from now, you feel like, okay, we want to be a little more stringent, we want to be more compliant with that, you could adopt that at any time. Right, it's just you're required when you adopt other codes to include that in the adoption process. And it's also important to know that we're doing the solar and electric ready code right now too. That's part of the requirement. So there's some upgrades around that that are required by the state as part of this adoption process outside of the low energy carbon code.
Have there been projects in Frisco that have been limited to electrification because of the current grid?
We are finding, I'll tell you from a planning perspective, that all of our projects the last couple of years get told right from the beginning before they start planning that they need to put in transformers, which didn't used to be the case because there isn't enough to provide. And then those are impacting siting and things like that. And Excel is every time saying that they need to keep adding more expense for the more electric. And that is increasing the transformers needed, and that increases the size, which increases the setbacks to structures.
And that's a certain amount of units.
Power also, they look at what's gonna be, if there's gonna be solar, if there's, what's gonna be used when they determine that transformers.
Yes.
So when you build a house.
It doesn't mean it's bad, it just means that it's, the increase is leading to people, developers being caught off guard by what they need.
So if you design your house electrification with solar panels to offset that and stuff, then a transformer might not be in there is what you're saying. You might not have to put a transformer in or something.
You probably wouldn't need a transformer.
If you offset it with that, yeah.
It would depend.
You know, and I kind of look at the solar ready, I know we're already doing it, it's a no-brainer, you know, it's, you know, put it in now and yeah, it's gonna cost, but it's there. You know, the other thing I look at, you know, electrification of keeping the grid and all that, and same with the gas. You know, is going around all these resorts and all these new buildings, everybody has an outdoor fireplace, everybody's just burning the gas, you know, and it's just kind of amazing that the gas isn't making it to the end, but the people before who are getting the gas are just burning it, you know, out in the open for people just to sit by, or not even anybody sitting by, it's going in warm days, it's just blowing the gas out, you know. Is there anything that's stopping that, you know, in the codes or?
No, not at this point, but there will be.
Yeah.
You know, one of my concerns is that if we are not as stringent with our code and then it's gonna apply to, you know, these bigger single family homes, you know, because like the town has been striving to go beyond, you know, for our workforce housing and everything else. But if we, you know, and I believe we should be doing so as in leading by example, but then as soon as we relieve the need for doing so, they're gonna jump right on board, they're gonna put bigger windows, they're gonna heat their driveway, whatever it is, it's gonna be with gas, you know, or whatever. I don't agree with the idea of losing the ground that we gained, personally.
I'm the same way.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And just from my understanding with the different pathways, it could easily be backtracked and giving a little bit more leeway. I think people will grow into that space as opposed to if we pull back, even if, you know, most builders are already doing that, that's great. Let's just make it so they can't grow into any more leeway. So that's why I would say I'm more in favor of the ERI pathway and lowering that number to 50, especially if we don't really know what the LECC is gonna look like, and then maybe that's something that we can adopt down the road once that transition is a little bit more clear. What do you all think?
I think I agree with Robin. I do have one question, like if we had to label or find or say who is this going to apply to in the future? Who the developers, the builders, what does that funnel down to? The person building the home? Is it, I guess I'm just trying to, like for Frisco specifically, you know?
Well, in terms of how it funnels down, eventually where it ends is with the homeowner, person who
I
purchases.
mean, are we talking about individual homes, like, are we, I mean, are affordable housing, I'm just, cause I guess I look at Frisco and sometimes I guess I can't, I mean, I guess there's a lot of new development, but I also don't see a lot of new development after this.
We're gonna have a lot of redevelopment. is what we're gonna have, cause we're almost at build out, right? Like, so, you know, we don't have room to be building massive projects, except for when we're doing it.
Can I rephrase that question a little
Yeah.
bit? If I'm interpreting, you tell me if I'm interpreting it correctly. On a and you might have to deal with these both differently, on a residential remodel or a commercial remodel, where would the energy code be applied? How would it kick in?
It's applied in similar ways on both. On commercial, there's more focus on lighting, energy use through lighting and other systems like that. And the way we have it structured now, there's more focus on meeting zero on the residential side. But both look at insulation, energy use generally in a variety of different ways. Building thermal envelope, and then systems within the structures.
Breaking it down, I think we've talked about this and it was in the memo, if somebody renovates their kitchen, do they have to change the rest of their house? Or no? What is that threshold for?
So that depends on if we're adopting the existing building code, it will establish triggers based on the type of work, which is why we should adopt the existing building code. But right now, the way we do this is if you do a remodel on your kitchen, we say you have to get an energy audit. And that gives you information on the current energy conservation level within the portions of your home that get examined. We do not have a mandatory requirement that you do anything with that audit.
Yeah.
It makes you aware, and so it tells you this is, these places you could upgrade, but we don't mandate that you upgrade based on that audit. Some neighboring jurisdictions do.
In which case, you could then remodel your kitchen, and you will have had a blower door test or whatever, and you can just.
So you wouldn't get a blower door
to it.
test. You would not get a blower door test if
For
you
an
would
energy audit, that doesn't count?
No, it would not for a
Okay.
remodel on your kitchen. You would follow a prescriptive path in the code for if you were to open exterior walls, other things like that. You would follow a prescriptive path for putting insulation back in those exterior walls. Things like that.
Okay.
That's one of the key things I'm interested in there is where does this kick in for remodels? Because we've got a lot of homes and buildings that could use some remodel.
Well, yeah, that's the future for sure.
Yeah, you could definitely kick in an incentive not to remodel if we're not careful. Depending on the added expense.
Yeah, depending on the added expense. You know, a lot of the time, the added expense for a majority of this is just that it's an added expense up front. And you get paid off over time. And maybe it's 15 years, maybe it's 9 years, maybe it's 20. But the thing is overall, you'll end up getting paid back for it. Obviously, if you're gonna sell your house within a couple of years, you don't see that return.
Couldn't you always look at it like instead of an added expense, it's just the expense?
You could.
Sure, well, right.
And I would.
Right, and that's the thing, now, it has to be an added expense, right, because we're following that. And if we lighten the code, then you can kind of pick and choose, is that not the case?
No,
That is the case.
I'm just.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the case, I was just.
You still have to meet minimum requirements.
What's that?
You still have to meet minimum requirements.
Right.
I would suggest that the discussion of increasing the cost of workforce housing, I'll speak for myself if it were to come before this council, is I would ask towns to absorb those additional costs to achieve our environmental goal. I think that'll be something that we could continue to push forward. And on a market rate house, we all know that increased cost is pushed along to the buyer.
Sure. So our Galena Street project, where's that fitting in the energy energy thing with zero, is that what they're building there, or what
The
what
town-
pathway are they taking?
Well, the town put in the development agreement with NHP that it had to be that. So
Okay,
the town made sure that it met the highest standard
They
that they
made the
wanted,
highest
the
standards.
council did that.
So
Okay.
we're
And that-
already,
that's just us leading by example, that's,
And we had that, the council had that discussion at the time about added costs to that, and they chose to subsidize more. for that.
and what was that subsidized around?
It was based on pre-design estimates, it's probably not a very useful number.
Okay.
It
Because it's
was,
a big
but it was
building.
significant.
Yeah. Because you're looking at 50 units and stuff, and so you're not looking at one place, but yeah, I wonder what we subsidize on that. Okay.
yeah, we wanted
We're already
to
doing
achieve, I don't remember what that number was either, but,
And we're already subsidizing.
And then for town buildings, we already have an internal policy of we're all electric, and we're to the highest level.
shooting for net zero.
Yep.
And that's also aspirational. But that's not required by the industry, right? So,
Can we conclude on this?
can we conclude on this?
Can you tell me what you
Phrase.
So I know Rick suggested keeping the 3 paths, but having the 50. Robin and Elizabeth, I believe I heard say they only want the energy rater requirement path. There's that path, but only that path where you have to hire an energy rater, correct? That's what you want.
does that mean the 2024 IECC with the ERA?
That's the same.
You're
saying
removing
the
the
same
2
thing.
pathways, so everyone has to hire an energy rater to perform that method, and you don't get the other 2 methods by saying that.
Is there a compromise there with, if we look at the LECC low energy and the carbon codes that's coming, the pathways that come through there, which I believe are the prescriptive and the ERI?
I don't think we know yet. With the LECC, I just don't think that we know, and it's a new type of code.
We're gonna have to wait for experience on it, right?
Exactly, that's my experience on a lot of these codes, honestly, it's great to let some of the bigger places adopt them and put them in place for a year or 2 and then see where they go, oh, we need to fix this because this doesn't work. Or just they need to make modifications in some way. So I don't think we know that right now. If you're looking at doing the ERI single path, is that what I'm hearing?
Well, that's only between now and at this point.
The mayor has suggested the 3 paths. We have 2 council members that have suggested the single path.
Right, but the mayor also had just asked, is there any way we could blend some of that in there?
Another suggestion is we go with the 24 EICE. We would then ratchet down our prescriptive pathway, which I believe gets us to that 50.
What do you mean when you say we ratchet down?
I don't follow that.
The current is 2, if I'm not mistaken, bringing that down to 50.
Okay, so that's the ERI pathway, but yes, we could do that. We could do whatever you'd like. If you're looking, I guess the question is, are you still considering a mandate for the ZER program, the Zero Energy Ready Housing? Because that is, the ERI pathway is a part of ZER, it's not, that's a separate program. And that's a separate portion of the code, it's a part of the appendices in the code, and it was something that we put in place in 2018. Do you want to mandate that? And if you do, I'm not sure, I mean, I guess you could modify the ERI down to 50, but if you're gonna do the ZER, I'm not sure if that's necessary at that point. But
So we would do the perspective paths, the simulated building performance, and then the ZER pathway, and not the ERA one. Is that what that's kind of?
no, you do the 3, and then you could mandate that the ZER program for all new construction, kind of like we did before.
So that's 4 pathways.
That's right, that's right, that's right.
Yeah.
Simplify things.
So I guess if that's the way you're moving, here's my suggestion. You'll also hear at comments tonight at the council meeting, you'll probably hear a little bit about the stretch code, which is also another appendices within the IECC that requires more credits. Right now you need 10 credits, energy credits, as you're calculating things, and 52 on your ERI. Just within the code, leaving zero out of all of this. The stretch code moves that to 47 on your ERI and 20 credits. 20 credits, I'm not a big supporter of 20 credits, but if you're looking to maintain some sort of leadership in terms of climate action, I wouldn't suggest adopting the stretch code, but I would suggest moving your ERI to 47. And then that's it, sort of incorporating part of the stretch code without adopting all of the stretch code, right? And quite honestly, I looked through today, most of the builders right now are hitting between 44 and 46 to 47 on their numbers anyway.
Even when they're not trying, they're just following code.
They're doing the ZER program and they're hitting that. So it's a way to sort of achieve between the mandatory requirements within the code and incorporating a little of the stretch code. It's a way to get close to doing the ZER program without mandating it. You'd be pretty close and fairly well aligned with the ZER program without
So
making
then
it.
what's the difference without mandating it? Like you still need an energy rater, you still need X, Y, and Z that's gonna be in there.
So it
right?
depends on if you're gonna do the new ZER program, because the new ZER program is gonna lower requirements way lower than they are now. You're gonna go from a 0.27 U factor to a 0.25. That's no longer a double pane window, that's a triple pane window. There's a lot of cost in that sort of stuff. So there's a number, and so then if you're gonna do a ZER mandate, we need to say we're gonna do the ZER mandate that we're on now and stick with that. Not the upgraded one that came out January 1st, 2026.
Fair.
Yeah, that's what I would.
Yeah, and then we could stick with that at least for 6 years. This is kind of what.
Or if you're not opposed to adopting the LECC, you could, a year or two from now, decide you wanna move to, upgrade a little bit, move to the new ZER. And it's a quick amendment, and you make an amendment to that portion of the code, upgrade to the newer version of the ZER and adopt the LECC. And then you also are achieving some of your electrification goals at that point too.
And so that's basically a way that Rick's leaning towards, right?
Yes.
Well, yeah.
So, if I have this right.
Yeah.
I'm keeping notes too.
We're definitely.
We go through this a lot.
If I have this right, basically you want to stick with what you have. You want to still mandate the ZER program for residential, that zero energy ready homes for a new home construction. Keep the 3 pathways that are in the code for all the other structures, and then your thoughts about where to set that ERI between 47 and 52.
Yeah,
You had suggested 50.
That's fair. I mean, that's probably a good layman's way to explain where we're at. I was really thinking that this particular council was really only looking to, we should follow the state at some point, but we're not looking to recreate the wheel. We're not looking to change everybody's lives as far as developers, builders, homeowners and whatnot. And we have already achieved, or we've been reaching for some relatively high goals. And I think that that's what we were all shooting for. That's my sort of opinion of what you guys have said. Now that would be the way Rick was talking, right?
2024 code.
Yep.
ZER program that we have now, which is this version 2, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And John is suggesting that we could go to follow what the energy rating of 47, because that's what we're already achieving.
Yes.
Generally speaking.
Yes, those folks that are under the ZERB program are already achieving that, or less.
Martin?
We lower the ERI.
Yes.
And is lowering the ERI counterintuitive?
My thing on that is that if they're 50, they don't wanna be, like you said, they don't wanna be at 50 because they might be at 50.5 or 51. They wanna be a little below it. So they're shooting a little bit lower. So if we lower it to 47 or 48, now they're gonna be shooting for 45, 46 because they don't wanna be at that 48.5. You know, that's,
The leeway.
so I don't know what, you know, because they're gonna push it a little lower. Is that something, you know,
I guess
and that's gonna be more money.
that just something that I've learned from that in our conversations is that, especially for the larger homes, pushing those extra couple points are resulting in like importing materials from like all over the world, which in turn would kind of offset what we're trying to achieve with just like a massive carbon footprint. And that's what I've understood has been a big challenge for a lot of these builders with those extra couple of points when we get towards 47, which is why it sounded like 50 was like the happy medium. We're still pushing, but we're not making it completely impossible and we're not increasing our carbon footprint massively. That's my understanding.
That's a really good point, Bradley, just because, you know, these aren't regional manufactured things and whatnot, and we don't really consider the greatest footprint that, you know, this thing has taken to get here, how much water it's consumed and how much everything else and how much carbon it's producing and all. And so that it's a good consideration for sure.
I like that. I mean, without, like, I could go to an all-day retreat just on this.
Well, like he
Sure.
says in the beginning, it's a lot of professionals that worked on this and working on codes, and it's still, you know, it's a tough one.
It's a lot of gray area.
Yeah, the first paragraph was like, yeah, I'm trying to get my head around it too, but, you know, you have experts doing this. and
Can't
people
capture
that,
everything.
You know, and it's
Can't
difficult,
capture
it's hard.
I mean, I would just defer to the experts.
In going to 50 as opposed to 47, 50 is still lower than what we have in the 2018 code and the current seal, correct?
Yes, and yes, in the 2024.
So it would still be pushing the envelope on the envelope.
Take that chance of trying to hit right at 50. They're gonna go a little below that, so you're gonna still see a lot of scores, you know, 46, 47, 48, because they're not gonna wanna take that chance of being right at 50 and winding up at 51 and having a problem, so. So we wanna go ERI 50?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Alright, so 3 versions, ZER's mandatory, ERI's 50.
Sorry, it's probably more.
No, this.
More work on your part.
No, that's what I'm supposed to be doing. I wanna make sure I'm putting this together so it achieves what you,
So that means
as a group, wanna achieve.
we're closing the other pathways. This is the only way, right?
There's 3
No,
pathways,
three
and
pathways.
This is
ZER
counter to
and
what you're saying.
But the ZER will be mandated for new construction, new residential construction.
Which means that it requires an ERI, correct?
That's part of the ZER program.
Which is the only pathway to achieve zero.
As folks are going through the ZER program, that's.
I know, I know.
You've come back.
So for a remodel, they could select one of the other pathways.
The prescriptive,
Yeah,
yes, but not for new construction.
right. Right, I like it.
It's tough.
Yeah, I mean,
It's a lot of things to juggle.
So just know, even though you're giving guidance tonight, there will be an ordinance written that people also will make comments on.
sure. Well, as they should. Hopefully, they make many comments
Right.
on it, you know, so we don't have to necessarily guess at this, you know, I mean, we want other input.
Right.
And hopefully everybody's already got some other input by some of the experts that are in town as well. Rick, can you hear us? Are you good and whatnot? Like,
That was energy also before Rick goes. I don't know if we need to talk fire, or are we good?
We did both, I think, yeah.
Just so that you don't, everyone, Rick doesn't think we're done.
Oh, yeah,
No.
I was just trying to wrap
Done
this,
with it.
this, section up. Yeah.
I just wanted, I hadn't heard anything from Zach, and I want to make sure we address any concerns you might have, otherwise,
I feel good with all the information that was presented.
Cool.
Okay. All right, well, if you guys have direction there, and sorry if it's gonna be a little more difficult than the easier pathway, but, you know, yeah, I think that's the right thing as well. So, I think that's good.
Okay.
Appreciate it very much, and so should we just move over to the fire side?
Fire's gonna be easy.
Fire's gonna be easy.
Fire's gonna be
Oh,
Thanks to
really?
these guys and Lady assisting us on Friday, we
Yes.
made a lot of progress.
Yes,
Alright.
we did. We had a meeting on Friday. It was very productive. I think that we, there were a few things that I suggested for change in there that we discussed and that fire was amenable to. And so we're gonna put some language in for those. We talked a little bit about these changes on the occupant loads and the triggers for sprinklers to 50. And I did in my memo say some of those seemed extreme to me, and they do numerically, but after talking with fire, their explanation to us was that it's a resource issue, right? And that from staffing and response times that it's just a resource issue for them, and that basically the more sprinklers that we have, the better for the community because of those lack of resources and those extended response times. So
Within that, John, just before you keep going, and maybe we'll tap into fire department guys here and girls. But does anybody know what the percentage of failed sprinkler systems are? In other words, like, how many places are flooding because they're putting a sprinkler system in to prepare for a fire that may or may not happen, and then all of a sudden they're dealing with floods in their place?
I have in other jurisdictions tried to get some of that information when we've had this sort of discussion, and it's tough, right?
Yeah.
Because a lot of it doesn't get reported, right? It's just turned into insurance. Whether it is a system failure, it's an installation deficiency, other things like that. Those numbers I've seen really wide-ranging, crazy numbers. So I don't know if you guys would agree with that or not, but
it's a small percentage, and most of those are due to maintenance issues caused by freezing temperatures up here. So a door gets blocked open. Hotels, we see it all the time where a stairwell door gets blocked open so somebody can come back in, and that door doesn't get closed, and then they have a freeze up within that stairwell. But it's a small percentage compared to the number of sprinkler systems we have in this community.
Yeah.
My thing on the sprinkler systems is, do all of them go off at once or just that area?
No, so whatever head
Yeah.
hits that heat, so that
Okay.
has a heat link, and it's head by head by head
Yeah.
in these sprinkler systems, so
Okay.
it's not the whole building.
Yeah.
It's typically limited to 2 to 3 heads activated. In a commercial building, that controls or extinguishes the fire. In a home, it's designed to protect the egress to get the occupants out of the home.
Gotcha.
In the resources, there's a problem with resources.
Yeah,
Because
so.
I was here when we had a volunteer fire department.
Yeah.
Some places burnt a little bit. So, I know we have like 35 people on the fire department every day. And I just don't see how many structural fires, like you're saying, the resources to put out a structural fire. No. How many structural fires have we had? In one day, we've had 3 or something. Have we ever had that? 3 structural fires?
Or how many per year or something, or
Or
how
more
many?
so things are highway accidents that was responsible.
I would say, jump in here. So I'm with Red Line Blue Fire. In our jurisdiction, we have about 23 fires a year. There has been times where we've had 2 structure fires within the county going. That has really drained resources. And when I talk about resources, in the conversation we had with John on Friday about resources, it's not just limited to fire resources. So when we look at dropping those occupant loads, those are our public open buildings. And we have to look at all the resources in the county. So that includes EMS transport, hospital capability, looking at that from that holistic whole community aspect of what truly in our, I call it the fishbowl of Summit County, what truly can we do? So that 50 number has actually been around since the 1980s and has been carried through the code cycles because while we have increased hospital size, we're still limited on resources. And if those folks have to get to Denver, how are we getting them to Denver? Our mutual aid resources, Eagle, Lake, Greene County, Park County, you know, we're planning on an hour or more response time for them. And so, again, we're very resource limited in the county.
So you have 20 people, the red, white, and blue, and then we have 30 on the side. So that's 50 firefighters we have in Summit County fighting a day.
And 80% of the time, there's more than one incident going on in this county.
Yeah.
So that resource pool just starts draining.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I understand.
Yeah.
You know, back in the day, it took a half hour and 40 minutes to get all the volunteers there.
We're trying to have a spare time so that.
That's great.
I also spare
Because you got the resources.
Yeah.
You have the equipment, you know, and, and we have new fire stations and, you know, we consolidated, so, yeah, it's great.
I think another piece of the sprinkler conversation to think about too is community resiliency and ensuring that businesses can stay open and we can continue to house people within our housing complexes. So just another piece of that sprinkler piece of.
Like instead of a big unit, multiple units burning, only one would
Yeah.
burn. And you could still occupy the rest of it.
You know, and I'm fine with, you know, with multi-buildings and commercial with residential above it, you know, yeah. You know, a restaurant underneath it, you got condos above it, of course, no one should restrict, you know, because that's gas and combustion and stuff, it's faster. You know. I look more at the single-family houses, you know, lowering it down to 45 from 6,000.
Did that change to 5,000 now?
You know.
No, well, I don't remember.
Did that change to 5,000, the 4,500
No,
from 6,000?
no, it did not.
Okay.
It's still at 4,500, but then there are some allowances to 5,000 for additions. The language that just received yesterday addresses some of those concerns that I expressed in here, and I think it's more, it's clearer, it's more well-written, and it establishes some different triggers that are not so subjective, 50% thresholds, things like that. And so I'm comfortable with that. I think that works well for the community. It's consistent throughout the other communities. Well, assuming we adopt it that way, but I think that most folks would be satisfied with that. I think other communities that I talked to express some of the same concerns about the language. For me, it looks like that language has been cleared up. So we're at 4,500 and 5,000 when we're talking about adding square footage.
Yeah.
So then I'm looking at, so my notes are from the original information that went out. Just to be clear then, under the CBO recommendation, to maintain 300 occupants, noting a 1,500 square foot space would be forced to have a sprinkler system. Is that the case that we're looking at?
Yes, if that's still the case, if we go down to that 50 on everything for the trigger, yes, there are some of those small businesses that normally would have been exempt to a higher level that will not now.
Well, my thing with the 45 is, you know, is that they're taking the square footage of the whole house, you know, living space, and already we have codes for garages. If you have cars in the garage and you have living space above it, you're already fireproofing the garage for an hour. You know, you're putting that fire. So, you know, I just don't see that everything should be clumped in. You know, if we're looking at putting, you know, lower to 4,500, what are alternatives to cutting down, like near your kitchen, you know, fire repressing sheetrock and stuff, and you know, like another pathway of a house going hey, it's 45, but you know, fireproofing the garage, I'm fireproofing around my kitchen, over the, you know, the ceiling over the kitchen is fireproof sheetrock and
But
slows it
we
down.
have to do that anyway.
Yeah, so I don't know, you
Yeah,
know,
so-
why we're lowering to 45 from 6,000, you know. I would like to see it higher. Or garages or non-living spaces are taken out of it, you know, taken out of that square footage. Instead of just taking the footprint of the house and saying 45 is it.
So Dan, what do you base,
What's that?
what are you basing that on? What information?
My own tuition. No, you know, I built a house in '97, okay? I put a wood beam in my garage. And it was a 5-hour burn rating on the beam. Well, I paid a lot of money for that wood beam, and they told me I needed to cover it with sheetrock.
Wrap it, yeah.
You know, wrap it. And to increase the burn rate, you know, the burn rate on that beam was already 5 hours, you know. And we're told it's at 30 minutes to get there. You know, so a 5-hour burn rate on certain things.
Save your house.
Yeah, is, you know, it's not burning. So you have to do all this extra work when you already have the rating of a burn rating for over an hour or 2 hours.
That's a collapse rate, not a burn rate.
Well, whatever. Yeah. So that's where I'm getting my information.
Okay, so I'm just gonna share with the group that the national average response time is about 6 minutes. It's not about, it is. Our response time that we strive for in County is 8 minutes. That's due to having a lake in the middle of the county, copper being isolated all on its own, and our geographical make. A fire in a residence doubles in size anywhere from 30 seconds to 1 minute. With the increase of synthetic fibers in residential structure, we reach a rapid state of flashover within 3 to 7 minutes. If we look back to the 80s and 70s, that was 30 to 45 minutes. We have fires burning much hotter and much faster. Keeping a fire in its lowest state of burn, which would be done through the installation of sprinkler systems, keeps the occupants of that house safer, and gives the firefighters more time to get there to keep the fire in its current location and not have it spread to the rest of the building. That's just a little bit of information.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor / Battalion
Makes
Captain.
this guy an expert.
Yeah, he happens to be in the industry.
And how many of those do we have happen?
Which ones, Dan?
The ones that you're talking about, these 7 minutes, and how many of those in this county have we had that the house, you know, within 7-8 minutes is totally engulfed? And
We have about 40 structure fires a year in some fire and EMS district to my knowledge. And with that, due to the increase of 24/7 staffing, which is advanced since your experience with the volunteer department, our firefighters are able to get there quicker and put the fire out faster, reducing the damage. And they are aided in that reduced damage, and thank goodness, also helping reduce any loss of life through the use of sprinkler.
okay, so from 6,000 square feet to 5 to 45, you know, what's the rationale? The resources?
Resources are a component, as Chief Nelson pointed out.
Because as we talked last time, it takes like 17 people, you know, they're saying to fight a fire at a house, structural fire.
It does, we don't have a lot of those 6,000, pardon me, the over 4,500 or the 5,000 to 6,000 square foot houses in the middle of town. But we do have them on the outskirts, and most notably, I'm trying to think of like Frisco Heights
On the
off
bike
of,
But that's county, that's not Frisco.
That's true,
That's
but-
not Frisco regulations,
No,
that's
but
county.
right, but we have to protect that, like, it's our fire department that goes,
Yes,
that
I
goes
know,
to
but
fight
those are
that fire.
county regulations, we're not telling county what they need to do.
No, that's true. That,
You know,
yeah, I see what you're saying
we're
there.
doing with so we're looking at the 6,000 square foot house in the county. Like you just said, we don't have any in.
Katie, do we have any 6,000 square foot homes within Frisco proper?
I would have to search,
Okay.
unless it's
Maybe
in the
one
info
or
we got
two.
from Summit Builders.
Obviously, multiple dwellings, attached townhomes and whatnot is greater square footage per.
So per the info we got from Summit Builders Association, from 5,501 to 6,500, it's 10 in Frisco.
There's 10 in Frisco that exist, and how many will be built? Probably not many more, right, at
Probably
this
not, then
point.
they build big lots.
Right, because big lots and big houses.
What would trigger, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, no, go ahead, what would trigger what?
What would trigger then, I might have missed this in here somewhere, I don't see it, but what would trigger the need to put in a sprinkler system in a remodel?
That wasn't even covered there.
So is that not covered at all? I didn't see it in here.
Yes, that was in the last section of the memo 1103-5. And so there were these different triggers about additions or alterations, other things. And as I was saying early in this part of my presentation is that some of that was subjective. It wasn't very clear. And the new language now says 50%. The new language that's been proposed is if you 50% remodel on the existing home, then you start looking at retrofit. Whereas before it just said, if you remove some covering, you have to look at retrofitting. And so I think that fire did a good job on the rewrite of that, of putting in
And that would be
threshold.
50.
That's actually been in the code in different ways for quite some time, that 50% threshold.
And that 50% would be based on a 4,500 square foot home.
If we made that change.
Well, it would be based on the size of the existing home.
Right, that's what I mean, yeah. If we made that change, then that would kick in, okay.
Right, you have a 3,000 square foot home, you're remodeling more than 50% of the home, but you're not expanding square footage. You
doesn't
don't
count.
need sprinkler systems.
Right, and so there's new language, we'll look at the new language, but that 50% threshold was designed to address our concerns we expressed about the retrofit. So I don't see that being something that's gonna happen a lot, honestly.
Sure.
One other thing to touch on in here, just to make sure, because I put it in here and I want to make sure I explain why it's in here, is fire barriers. I talked a little bit about fire barriers in here and that there were amendments by fire to eliminate fire barriers, change that to firewalls. And I expressed concern around that. I just want to explain a little bit about what that's about. Fire barriers and firewalls are both rated assemblies. A firewall, by definition, extends from the foundation to the roof deck. So you typically see a firewall between townhomes. A fire barrier can be horizontal, it can be a wall. It's used to compartmentalize space within a building. It was put in the code in 2009. It's a way to get around sprinklers sometimes. You can basically divide a building into two different fire compartments, and they have separate egress out of those compartments, other things like that. Or you can take a multi-level building sometimes and do fire barriers in between, and some levels would need to be sprinkled and some would not, depending on the type of occupancy, square footage, other things like that. In our discussions with fire, the idea was that we weren't going to partially sprinkle buildings. We either were or we weren't. And so fire barriers may allow you to separate this area, and this room doesn't have to be sprinkled, but the rest of the building does. And fire's perspective, and if I'm not getting this right, they can speak up. But in our conversation, the way I understood that was they would prefer to have an entire building sprinkled or not. However that works out under the code, and by changing barriers to walls, that reduces the amount of compartmentalization within buildings where you might have partial sprinklers and will require full sprinkling of the building. And then sort of in some of the other amendments it says that, right? It takes out floors and says buildings, or stores and says buildings, so that the intent of that is to sprinkle the entire structure. So I just, in case there were questions around that, I put some extensive information in there about that because it was in several different places in the amendments. I just want to make sure I addressed that, so that wasn't an unanswered question later.
When you're talking about that, you're talking new construction, correct?
Or 50%.
Or 50%.
Well,
50% expanded.
Yeah, it's removed fire barriers in a lot of places, so it won't be, it will be relevant at that point. Because it would have to be a fire wall, and the wall would have to go from foundation to roof deck, so it wouldn't apply to those areas internally when we're trying to separate floors or compartmentalize a specific space within a floor.
I can just imagine though, some older commercial buildings could still be situations where they're remodeling a piece of it or adding on a piece, and there's a piece that isn't sprinkled.
50%, right.
But do you understand what I'm at?
I do, and I think that's probably something we'd look at on a case-by-case basis and look at how that, if they're trying to separate those two spaces, whether or not they can put in a true firewall by definition, and if not, then if it's a fire barrier, probably we'd have to look at what remains in the code for fire barriers, but where it's been related, it may no longer apply and they wouldn't be exempt, and everything would be sprinkled.
For anything over 4,500 square feet.
No, the fire barriers are different.
Oh, the
So,
fire barriers.
Fire barriers are not, the 4,500 square feet is specific to residential.
Residential homes, right, yeah. Because commercial, it's required anyway at this point.
If you're okay if I jump in again.
Please.
So fire barriers and fire walls are for commercial buildings. And so when we start talking about the 50% and the 4,500 square feet, those are strictly residential buildings.
Okay, yeah.
The code already has pathways in chapter 11 of the fire code. I'm not sure what it is. Well, it falls under the existing building code and the building code. Handles those structures that are commercial when you're doing remodels and really is prescriptive on what that says. And then if we start talking about historic buildings, there's allowances in the code for historical buildings to be treated differently than regular structures.
So, quick question then, kind of to see if we can wrap it up, in my mind at least. At this point, after the discussions you've had, staff recommendations are basically online with red, white, and blue and summit recommendations at this point.
Correct. I think some of what we recommended we should change, they said, yes, we agree with that. And some of what they said we'd like to keep, we went, okay, based on our conversation around resources and other things, we can agree to that too. And so what we will present will be something, we'll coordinate it with Jay and Jess and all of them. But it'll be something that we have all agreed upon, they'll look at it before we present it. And so that it's aligned between all of us when we present it to council as a part of the package.
I really appreciate that collaboration aspect of this. I think that's really cool for our community, so thanks for putting all that time into doing that. Because for me, it helps me view the whole thing, where you're not looking at two different opinions or two different, systems of doing something. So I just want to say that out loud because I think that's really cool.
Well, it was very helpful to us. Everybody participated, but Jay sort of, spearheaded that a bit, and we got new information, right? We didn't know that there was a new version of that residential section in 11035. We didn't know that until Friday, and that had not been shared with us prior to that. So, it was very helpful to us too, and as I said, made the fire amendments a lot easier for us. Right? I feel like we're really well aligned now, and it's an easy presentation officially when we put the ordinance together and do the public hearing.
Okay. Anybody have anything in particular before we maybe come to an agreement of direction? No? I would like to maybe ask, aside from the 6,000 square foot homes, how many 4,500 square foot homes do we have in this town? And you don't have to answer that right now.
Well, I can tell you, based on their data, for 3,500 to 4,500, 163. And from 4,500 to 5,500, 64.
64 homes that are over 4,500 square feet.
Plus 10, plus
Plus the
1,
10, right.
so 76 over that.
And I think they use zip codes particularly
Okay.
for that search. So, it may not be that many within Frisco proper.
Yeah, I mean, it's a small.
So is that looking at like copper too? The zip
Again,
code?
ones that you would serve.
Yes,
Yeah, and was that lower 10 Mile Basin or was that all of the 10 Mile Basin?
It said Frisco
Yeah.
specifically.
Does that count for Copper Mountain with the zip code?
It could be if their zip code is 18.
We don't know how they gathered their data.
So based on what Jay thinks, they use zip code.
Right, because that would actually be a thing, like 60 homes, like you go up to Lewis Ranch and that, you know, that could be 60, 45, 6,000 square foot homes. And that's not even remotely in Frisco at this point, and so.
Well, and that's the golf course area too.
Yeah, sure.
6,000.
Sure, that would skew those numbers a little bit. Well, within that, I would say I'm in support for how you have brought it forward and how it will be written now.
Good.
I know, I'm like, I don't even know, I like the collaboration piece, so I'm okay moving ahead with your, whatever you're gonna put together there. Based on the fact that you guys have a good relationship in sorting this out.
Yes, and whatever we put together, we will share and make sure that we're all aligned with before we bring it forward.
Robin?
I would agree with that. I appreciate the collaboration and
Zach?
We know where I stand, I told them,
Yeah.
500 square feet isn't much, but,
At that size.
I'm not with that, but.
I'm in support.
Okay. We know the mayor's in support, so I guess you have direction.
Thank you.
Ooh, that was
Thank you.
It'll make
smart.
this a lot easier for me.
Spent
Hey,
2
can we
weeks
get
like
just
stressing
a
out.
moment though? On these other codes, A through G, is there anything changing, on the fuel, gas code, the mechanical code, the plumbing codes?
No, there's
Is
not.
much changing on that? Is that why we didn't see any of those?
That's correct. And the only thing that really from an amendment standpoint, there'll be a larger number of amendments on the building code, but that's just because there's overlap between fire and building, and so we will make amendments to the building code to coincide with those amendments that we're adopting with fire. So when you see those, if you think, wow, there's a lot of building code amendments, a lot of those are going to be related to fire too, because they're duplicative in the two codes in the cases.
Plumbing code, much change?
No.
Mechanical?
No, really not much with any of the others.
Okay.
Any changes specific to anything Dan's building?
Yeah.
I wanted to say that,
Dan, if you'd like to call.
Turn him off.
You do have a building permit, okay, so you're good.
I'm hoping to get him in before the codes.
I see, yeah.
We donate one of our houses for practice.
Can we just let you know one other thing you're gonna see in the amendments, and that is that we would like to give a leniency period so that people who are designing plans right now don't have to then redesign their
Sure.
plans.
Yes, please.
So John is hoping to be able to move forward with, I don't remember what you.
So typically about 45 days. Like if we do this, is it April 14th? Ish. So if it was April 14th, I would say June 1st. Between April 14th and June 1st, we would accept applications on either code. And that's, honestly, that's just fair to the builders who have been in the process. Sometimes the process is a year long, right? And you don't want them to get 10 months in and go, oh, by the way, we changed codes, and you need to go back and start over.
And we are telling people at every development review committee already, so and we've told all the people people we know who are designing in town, we've kept them in the loop on all of these amendments and asked for comments, so. They're all aware of this, even if they don't follow the dictate.
Anything else? All right.
Thank you, everyone. I know it's
Thank
been
you,
a difficult,
John. Thank you, John.
process.
Appreciate it.
And I appreciate the one dozing off. 'Cause I honestly have been in other jurisdictions where like, slumped over in your chair, so.
I don't know passwords.
I know, I
Closed
don't, I'm
ones.
like, alright.
I thought I was the only one.
Stacy
I'm like,
knows.
I can't open anything.
Council secure.
The council secure internet.
Do you need a password?
Yes.
I'm not gonna shout it because it's not mine.
Because then it wouldn't be secure.
Can you share it with me also?
Yeah, me
please?
too.
We all need it.
Don't be a heg, Sam.
Do you need it
Oh.
right now, or do you want me to?
After the meeting. maybe.
Put 'em
Do
from.
you want it right now or after?
I'd love to be able to use the internet.
Yes.
Yes.
I'll come get it.
Yeah,
I don't know what
there's like not really.
There's not.
Poor guy. Well, I watched his actual press conference, and it was that way. It's like, dude, yeah, we're hitting them when they're down, and that's how it should be. And it's just like, dude, you are so tough. It's unbelievable.
Do you ever see that lady that puts out videos and she puts a black thing over his face
No.
and mutes his voice, and then the narrator verbatim reads the speech that he gives?
Oh, man.
Oh man, it is hilarious because when you hear it in that way, you're like,
It's like a 13-year-old.
yeah.
Oh, it is. It's like a 13-year-old wrote the speech.
I saw one today.
Recording, I don't know. I'm gonna record. I'll record something. Yeah. Here, I got something for posterity. All right. Let's see. I think we're just waiting another moment for Wi-Fi. Thank you.
I don't need it. It's just a consent agenda.
Yeah.
Got it.
Right.
It is. That's it.
How fast are you gonna go?
Oh, I'm going fast. I'm going to go fast.
I guess we have a public comment.
No, we do. But Stacey, I'll wait for whenever you tell me. We're good to go? Everyone else good to go? Thank you very much. Okay. Welcome to the Town Council meeting for Frisco, Town of Frisco on March 10th, 2026. Stacey, could we have the roll call?
Sure. Alan.
Here.
Held.
Here.
Skipjack Adrian. Here. Ryan.
Here.
Kibby.
Here.
Here.
Very good. We will move on to public comments. Public comment is reserved for the items not slated for public hearing on the meeting's agenda. If you plan to comment on any item already slated for the public hearing later on this meeting's agenda, please wait until that item is announced. And public comment is requested at that time. State your name and address for the record and limit your comments to 3 minutes or less. No council action is taken on public comments at council meetings. Council takes public comments under advisement, and if council and/or staff response is deemed necessary or appropriate, the individual making the comment will receive a formal response from the town at a later date. Be sure to sign in at the welcome table at the beginning of the meeting, if providing in-person public comment, and include your contact information for follow-up communication there, please. So with that, do we have any public comment in chambers? Come on up, state your name and address, please.
Good evening, Council. Matt Wright, 3B Alpine Drive, Frisco. Commenting on the work session from this afternoon, specifically the energy cut reduction. Start with new construction residential, specifically new construction residential. Just want to comment on a few things that I heard during the work session. First one, there was talk of subjectivity of the ERS and the ERI index. It's an ICC certified scoring tool, so it's got a governing body, the American National Standards Institute. So there's a very set specifications that we have to follow there. The low energy and carbon code is published now. The state is ready to print books, so that's out, and you're already there with the code you're on right now, the Zero Energy Ready Homes program. You're meeting and exceeding that code currently. There are no tax benefits anymore for the ERI or the Zero Energy Ready Homes program. However, Excel does have some rebates available, $20,000 for if you do all electric new construction. So there are some incentives, but not seeing the higher end homes go there. It's not enough to convince them to get rid of the gas stoves or the fireplaces. And on the topic of prescriptive versus the performance paths, like most builders are going to select the prescriptive path when given the option. new construction I'm talking about still. Most builders work for developers, and developers are gonna do the cheapest approach possible. Also, Frisco does not currently have a prescriptive path under the Zero Energy Ready Homes program. There is prescriptive for existing homes with additions and remodels. And the new prescriptive code does have some complexity to it with the credit section. So, sticking with an ERI-based code is going to add some simplicity. And you're also, when you do have to go to the low energy carbon code, you probably can make a case that you're already meeting it and won't actually need to adopt it if you're already on zero. And that's I think fall of 2027 is when everybody's going to have to go because of the electric code adoption. Lowering the ERI score and keeping prescriptive, I don't think there's any need to lower the ERI score. That would be for, again, existing homes. Like, there was some talk of that, so I would just say, keep all that language as is. That Zero Energy Ready Homes is still going to be your new construction program. And if you do lower that ERI score, it just ends up creating a larger gap between those large homes that go prescriptive versus that ERI score, because those large homes do score higher on that scale if they're following the prescriptive path. So ERI does offer the most flexibility, honestly. It keeps things simple. It does require the third party to do the verification, but even the prescriptive new construction code, you have to have a third party like myself for lower door testing, duct leakage testing, ventilation testing under the 2024 code. So it's a few extra steps on top of that. And with the Zero Energy Ready Homes, as going back to keeping that with the code, there are some nuances to look at with the name change. It's Efficient New Homes program now. So, and also if you're adopting it, you want to stay on the most recent enforced version at the federal level. Otherwise, you'd be building homes that can't be certified if you use an older version. So I highly suggest that you keep the most recent version. And then there's some nuances with electric ready version in that code too. So you're going to have the state's electric ready and then this program. So we'll have to make sure that things are not getting too confusing with that. And then one more comment on existing homes. This wasn't discussed, just the energy audits that are currently in there. I didn't hear any discussion on whether to keep those or not. If you do keep it, I just want to make sure that it actually gets supported. Like, that program hasn't been that well supported here recently, and people don't know why they're doing it. There is a lot of good information in those reports, so it'd be great if people really understood why we're going through that process. And that's it. Thank you.
That's great. Thank you, Matt.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Anybody else in chambers? Yeah, come on up. Mm-hmm.
My heart is pounding, I'm sorry. My name is Megan Mulqueen. I live at 306 South Fifth, and I have lived here my whole adult life. And some of you people know me. I have to tell you that 2 weeks ago, I was accosted in the Safeway parking lot in the middle of the day, and it was probably the most horrible experience I have ever experienced in my life, and it happened here. And I want you people to know. And they found the guy, thank God, and he was issued a summons to appear at the end of May, and he is out. And I am not able to get a copy of the police report or the report from the district attorney, and I have called the district attorney as well as emailed and have not gotten any response back. And so I feel like I'm on my own, and I want this town to be a safe place for people, and for people not to be murdered here or raped, and I feel like we have a possibly false sense of security, and we need to be more aware. This was at noon. This guy profiled me in Safeway, and it just went downhill from there. And I try to look for the good in people, and I look and I think if somebody needs something from me, I will help. And I can't do that anymore, I feel. And I think we need to start conveying the attitude that we don't tolerate people doing bad things, and because we're going to have more bad things happen, and we already have in this year, and I'm horrified by that, and I don't want it to happen to anybody else. And so anyway, I wanted to tell you guys that, and hopefully it gets better here, because I think we tolerate too much, and we allow too much criminal activity to go unresponded to, and it's backfiring. And I want us all to be safe. So anyway, thank you so much. I love living here, and I want to see a better day. I don't want to die here. I don't. And I could have 2 weeks ago. And even the police said, "You're lucky you didn't get killed." And I'm like, Anyway, thank you.
Megan, I'm so sorry that has happened to you. I would say we'll be in touch. Yeah. Anybody else in chambers?
I'm Mary Lane Moore. I own Stork and Bear Company at 610 Main Street. And I just wanted to come tonight and just reiterate still my concerns about the parking situation on Main Street between 5th and 6th due to the boutique hotel Fitzrust that is happening, as well as a safe path for local visitors to be able to access the whole street safely. And then also to reiterate that I am not in favor of the parklets for the summer. Because we do have a lack of parking, and it would be really detrimental to the folks that are in that block from between 5th and 6th. And it does fringe over into the other, blocks, my block in the summertime. Yes, people will park and visit, and go, up the street and have, their meals. But we have such a limited now amount of parking due to that big project at Fitzrust. Thank you for listening. Okay.
Mary Lane. And we will be in touch on that too, please.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Would you have some public comment online whenever you're ready, Mr. Mayor?
Yeah, let's, I see no more public comment here in chambers. We'll move to online.
Jesse Burley, looks like you have your hand raised.
Jesse, can you hear us?
I can, and thank you. It is a little hard to hear the mic at the podium, just FYI, that you guys should know.
Okay, thanks.
And Megan in the audience, I'm so sorry that that has happened to you in the town of Frisco. So I'm really sorry about that. So with that, good evening, Mayor Pro Tem and council members. Thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight. For the record, my name is Jessica Burley, 244 Belford Street, and I served 2 terms on the Frisco Town Council from 2016 to 2024, during which time I voted to adopt the Zero Energy Ready Home program in line with Frisco's commitment to climate action. I want to begin by recognizing Frisco's longstanding leadership in this space. I'm proud that this community has consistently chosen solutions that reflect our values of resilience, health, and long-term affordability. The town's decision to construct all-electric municipal facilities is one clear example of this forward-looking approach, and it demonstrates that Frisco doesn't just talk about climate commitments, it builds them. It's also important to remember the history that brought us here. The Summit Sustainable Building Code was developed collaboratively over many years, rooted in data, community priorities, and the urgent need to reduce emissions from the building sector, the largest contributor to local greenhouse gases in our community. When builders in our region have a choice, the vast majority still choose the prescriptive path. This matters and is why Frisco required the performance-based Zero Energy Ready Home program for new construction, opting to forgo the other 2 less efficient pathways in the Summit Sustainable Building Code. That is leadership. We also need to be clear about electrification. A few comments tonight during work session raised concerns about whether our grid is prepared, but the facts tell a different story. The Colorado Public Utilities Commission has already approved $26 million in electric system upgrade for Summit County alone. These upgrades are specifically designed to support electrification, and most importantly, because we have a natural gas supply shortage in our region. The state of Colorado is moving decisively towards electrification, and Frisco has always been ahead of the curve. Electrification isn't a future concept, it's already happening, and we are ready. Finally, I want to center affordability, because at the end of the day, our building codes shape the lives of people who live in the homes we build. The long-term cost of operating a home matters as much, if not more, than the upfront cost. All-electric, efficient buildings save residents money for decades through lower utility bills and reduced maintenance. They also protect indoor air quality by removing combustion from inside the home, an essential health benefit for children, seniors, and anyone with respiratory conditions. Affordability is not just about the price to build. It is about the cost to live. And the policies before you tonight support long-term affordability, climate resilience, and community health all at once. Based on what I think was council's direction during the work session, I urge you to ensure that the most recent version of the Zero Energy Ready Homes I urge you to ensure that the most recent version of the Zero Energy Ready Home program for new construction is considered and not just the current version that Frisco is on today. I also urge you to ensure that the Solar and Electric Ready Code that you are mandated to adopt by the state is the 2.0 version, not the 1.0 version, which you can find published on the Colorado Energy Office's website. So with that, I appreciate the discussion that you all had earlier tonight. I'm happy to answer any questions, and thank you so much for your time and continued commitment to Frisco.
Thank you, Jesse. And thanks for remaining involved. Anybody else online for public comment?
Maybe just give it 1 sec.
I see Valerie on there. Is she looking to make a public comment?
Not tonight.
Okay, thanks, Val.
Yeah.
So it looks like no more public comment online. With that, we will close public comment and move to mayor and council comments. Anyone?
Yeah, I'd like to talk about the footrest and stuff, and in Tom's meeting that we had today, they've talked to Kelly Foot, and maybe Tom will talk a little bit more about that. But today I see them making a pathway. They brought in barriers around the front to make a pathway for people to walk along that, I look at it as like the businesses across the street have more traffic going by them, and that. But, looking at the construction site and, looking at the side streets, they are bringing the trucks in, moving a lot of dirt. To bring the trucks in there and bring it out and have all those parking spots, I can see why they need that, that space and stuff and how they're using it, So I'd like to, thank Tom for, his meeting with the Foots and at least they're doing the pathway, the other thing is all the parking spots and, the side streets and, the place I work, we're the worst too. When I manage that, I try to tell employees not to park in those parking spots, to park away. So a lot of that where Rivers is and Fifth Avenue, probably 50% of those parking spots are employees, of the stores and stuff. And, if we're trying to keep parking spots open and do that, it's to tell some of our employees, and I'm not a manager anymore, so I don't tell anybody to do anything, it's not my space. But I see the employees parking there, it's a lot of employee parking. So if we're complaining about parking, we need to do a little better from our employees of not parking there. On Mary Lane's thing, I know a lot of those cars that park on that street there. A lot of my friends, they go skiing at Copper. They live in Frisco, but they're not going to walk with their ski boots all the way down the main street. They're, on Belford Street, So I know that because I know my friends are skiing. I'm jealous all the time when I see their cars there. So it's a difficult thing of maybe, how we tell them to, go different places and stuff. But I think the majority of a lot of our parking issues are employees. And the employees parking there, So, the best we can do to tell people, don't park in front of your store. Don't, try to park off of Main Street and the side streets, I kind of park the alleyway back. So, it's moving forward. They're doing a lot, it's a big hole there, and we got a couple more years of this. So, It's gonna be tough, but like Main Street was tough too, and we redid Main Street intersections and stuff, but, whatever we can do to open up parking spaces. So that's my comments on that stuff.
Okay, thanks, Dan. I would say one quick thing on the parking spaces. When I first got on the beginning of COVID, when we had the promenade going and everything, and everybody was real concerned about the parking spaces at that point as well. I would say we would, as a town, would like to beg businesses to get their employees to park somewhere else. We're not going to go around and tell people they have to go park somewhere else, but we are going to beg that they'll help us out along with that. So I'm with you. I agree. I think it is a lot of employees, but yeah, it would be better for employees to give a little room for patronage. Thank you. Liz, you got something?
Well, now, I'm just thinking about how you can encourage more usage of like the transfer center parking. And have people bike, walk, or take the bus to Main Street. I don't know. Anyways, my comment is that Robin and I had the privilege of being judges for the talent show at the senior center. It was the 50+ group. And it was the Loosey Goosey talent show. That's right.
It's incredible.
It was I can't believe I'll never forget it. There was a great group of performers, and I had no idea. I'm talking too much. Anyways, it was awesome activity in our community.
Yeah, that's great. And I think the mayor was also with you there, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's awesome. Thank you guys for doing that.
You'll pretty soon be there. You're 59.
It was a comedian. It was a couple guys doing a comedian act, and they had like the table, and the guy's arms were out like feet, and then they had a sheet, and then the guy behind him was the hands, so they weren't like one body. It was pretty funny. Just the routine of getting ready, or it was like a morning routine. It was. But they had this one guy. I don't know how old he was, but he was previously like an opera singer. I still have regret. I wish I had picked him.
Well,
you built it out of tune.
Well, now he knows.
Well, we were.
Next year.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if they'll choose me.
All right. Thank you. That's good. I appreciate you guys going because I couldn't. Anyone else, Martin?
I think we might have skipped Zach. Does Zach, you have any?
Well, I was going to get back to Zach.
Okay. I do have two things. First of all, I want to say to Megan, thank you so much for coming here tonight and having the courage to do so. I don't think any of us were aware of this that happened. And it's not easy to come in front of people in public and talk about that. So thank you for bringing that to attention. It certainly makes me ponder what's going on. So thank you. On the parking situation, kind of to Mary Elaine, thank you for being here tonight for it. I've missed you. I've tried to capture you. I've been out there talking to Kim and Justin and Jan and Jesse and Jesse Burley and, of course, his wife, which is a good friend of mine, which I can't remember her name right now. I think here's what I have to say about it. This is a very complicated situation we're finding ourselves in. And the next council for the next 2 years and staff, we're really going to have to work hard to mitigate this. Tom and Mayor Rick have had a meeting with Jesse Foote. I'll be back around the neighborhood this week to kind of pass on some information. The thing, though, I think, the building has to get made, or built, I should say. And I think there's going to be a lot of learning experiences that we as a council can maybe look to the future. So when this happens again, we can take a sort of a different approach in the planning process. But I can just tell, since Mary Elaine, you're here tonight, I know that everyone here is trying to find the best way to mitigate this as best as possible. What can't happen, I don't think, is stopping the building, stopping the construction, and this is a big project. But I think constant communication with our commercial partners over there and Kelly Foot is going to be how we're going to make it through it. So that's just what I got to say about that.
Thanks, Martin.
Yeah, I just wanted to bring up one more thing then. You know, the signs that are up and don't walk down the street. I've noticed all the new signs that they put up to stop, you know, none of us want anybody to be hit on Main Street right now. And so that's kind of limited some of the safety stuff, but it's good to see the signs. And you know, Vanessa, they put the signs of shops are open down there, and so that keeps a little bit more too, you know. So I appreciate this to see those things happening. That, you know, we're trying to do some things to mitigate some things. So it's good to see that the signs are up and we're getting a walkway and they had to bring a big truck in there to take the concrete pillars off. So, you know, it's a lot of area to, you know, if you're getting dirt out of there and get a truck in there and stuff, you need some room, and we're in some growing pains, you know. Just some more comments. Thank you guys, Vanessa, and everybody who got the signs out and stuff like that.
Very good. Zach, you got anything? All right, thanks. Any staff updates?
No staff updates tonight.
All right, with that, we will move on to consent agenda. And yeah, I would entertain a motion if nobody has any other comments.
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion we approve the consent agenda.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Stacy, please call the vote.
Allen,
Yes.
Kibbe,
Yes.
Goldstein,
Yes.
Held,
Yes.
Skripchak Adrian,
Yes.
Ryan,
Yes.
and Incan is absent.
Okay, with that, consent agenda has been approved. I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion to adjourn.
Pro tem, thank you.
Pro tem.
We have a motion?
Second.
All right, and/or all those in favor, aye.
Aye.
We're good. Thank you. We are adjourned. Thank you for coming tonight.